At this point, I am spending at least 3 to 4 hours a day in some conversation with AI. And this isn't just experimental conversation, sometimes it is, but 80% of that 3 to 4 hours is spent actually doing work with AI.
Welcome to the Yeah But podcast, where leaders transform excuses into breakthroughs. I'm Mark Wolf, host and author of Yeah But. I interview New York Times bestselling authors, human rights activists, former CIA director, and everyone in between. Our guests share how they overcome doubts like I'm not ready to yeah, but I don't have time. Join us to learn how you can do the same. I'd love to talk to you about AI and just some of your thoughts. Like you were
Yeah,
just so brilliant with what you did on stage and some of the other conversations you had. And I know so much has evolved even since last month. I mean, you wrote 14 books. I love how you uploaded your information
right.
and it was even more brilliant than you because it remembered everything. But if there's some things you
Exactly.
want to talk about,
Exactly.
like your new book, some of the things you're doing, some of the things that have changed that you originally thought were important in AI and now you're seeing
Yeah,
because of DeepSeek and change and perplexity and what's going on.
right.
Anything you want to talk about with that?
There's so much going on with AI right now. I guess there's three things that have most impressed me in terms of how AI has changed and how it's changed the way that I approach what I do. So, starting with that last one first, at this point, I am spending at least 3 to 4 hours a day in some conversation with AI. And this isn't just experimental conversation, sometimes it is, but 80% of that 3 to 4 hours is spent actually doing work with AI, having it do research for me, validate ideas, give me new directions on existing ideas, um, create code for me. And I mentioned that I used to be a coder way back when. That's where I began my career. I haven't coded now for decades. With AI, I'm writing JavaScript, writing Python, uploading my stuff to the cloud on render.com. I'm using GitHub, which is to me wonderful because as a coder from way back when, I feel like I'm getting back into the game again. Um, I've been amazed at the amount of time that I'm dedicating to it on a daily basis. However, what amazes me even more is the increase in productivity, and it cuts both ways. The first way it cuts is I have never put out so much material and content, and it's almost a drug, which is the other side of the sword. I'm
Mm,
finding myself at 7, 8 o'clock, and then at 4 a.m. wanting to get up and interact with my AI because I just thought of something
mm,
that the AI could build for me. And I really do believe that we're going to have to come to terms with a different kind of threat from AI, which is that it will lure us in ways that social media and doom scrolling were barely an introduction to. They were the prelude to something that will be much more absorbing, not just for me, but for generations that are much younger than me. Uh, it's an incredible companion. It will do what you tell it to.
mhm.
It will do it marvelously. Um, it never pushes back, and that can become a real black hole. So trying to balance that increase in productivity and the allure of 10x productivity with the downside of 10x work as well. I want to work 10 times as much to produce 100 times as much now is going to be a real interesting tightrope walk as well. The other realization, Mark, is one of the strongest points so far, and this is why OpenAI is going to spend probably $3 billion to acquire Windsurf, is AI as a coding mechanism. So much of what we interact with in the world today is built on code. So if you accelerate that, if you take that one vector and accelerate that, that in and of itself creates enormous increases in creativity, productivity, value creation, what have you. And that's where AI, I think, has its greatest strength right now as a coding, its coding capability. And with agentic AI, we'll have entire, enterprises of AI agents coding for us and checking each other's code and debugging code and building on top of that code and coders, managing coders that are all AI powered. Um, I'm sort of amazed by how powerful that one part of AI is going to be. And I think it will leapfrog all of the basic LLM stuff that has, so fascinated us for the past several years. So that's the area that I'm most keeping my eye on right now is how is that going to change the world? Because the world today is mostly digital. That's
Yeah.
and most of how we create value is digital. So yeah, fascinating.
Canva just came out they just had that new release where you can
Yeah,
go and code through Canva. So here's a whole audience that would never,
that's
ever
right.
have thought about coding.
That's right.
And because of the way they introduced it, I know there's people that'll be like, look what I just created. Now,
Yeah,
again, hardcore coders are going to be like, this wasn't great. But when you give somebody like Adobe did that a long, long time ago with the ability to do
right.
websites, and that
Exactly.
was a
Exactly.
long, and people were like, oh, they're not coded right. They were like, but people got to create something they never could. And it opened their eyes to be like, well, what can I do? And it's
Right.
only getting better. So, Tom, it was interesting. I was just at the Vanderbilt had the National Institute of Security Summit over here, and Sam Altman was
Yeah.
there
Yep.
remotely, and he was talking about obviously very candidly about AI and using it in education, how people were afraid of it in the beginning and how they're
Right.
embracing it now to understand it's a research tool. It can do things so much faster. But he also mentioned that his 6-week-old, he actually asked AI for parenting advice, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's never ending. So, Tom, what concerns you for a guy who has been around? Again, we've both been around long enough, even longer than Sam,
Yeah.
to kind of see things. What's some of your concerns that you think that we don't see coming?
So let me. I'm going to adjust one thing that you just said because I think it's really important for us to use the right lens when we look at this. I'm not asking AI for parenting advice. I'm not asking AI for relationship advice. I'm not asking AI for business advice. I'm asking collective humanity because that's what AI is being trained on. So AI is
Mhm.
just going to parrot back to us the patterns that it sees in our collective. I was going to say wisdom, but it's not all wisdom, right? In our collective, context that we produce. So I am asking humanity when I ask AI. My conversation is not with AI; it is with humanity at large. That's a very different way to look at it, but I think it's an important thing to consider because the biases, the hallucinations, all of that is just a reflection of us. It is our behavior
But
reflected
but
through
hold
that.
on, but hold on. So hold on there. So if I'm gonna go and ask parenting advice, and I'm gonna ask it from people I trust and know and see their kids,
Mm.
it's a lot different than asking the collective universe
Oh, yes,
for their
absolutely.
parenting advice. Like when we use Yelp to go and actually ask for a restaurant review, I don't know if people go to a chain restaurant think it's the best Italian food they've ever had in their life because I don't have a frame of reference to say what they think is good. How does that play
True.
into it though?
True. Well, notice I said collective humanity. And I think decisions have to be made based on context and the specifics of that scenario, not on collective humanity's experience. But still important to understand that we're not, AI is not making this stuff up. We've made it up. AI is parroting it back to us. But to your question, the issue with AI that doesn't that's different than what Google or Yelp or TripAdvisor or anyone else would do is that AI will understand me. And then we'll be able to take that collective wisdom and funnel it through those behaviors and values that are important to me. Now, AI doesn't understand me yet to that level, but I have no doubt that this will be very, we're talking, years, not decades here. AI will get me better than I get myself. It'll understand my behaviors, my patterns, my preferences, my values, all these things, and how one differs from the other, because my behaviors may not reflect my values as I
Mm.
state them. It will get all of that, and it will hold my feet to the fire. It will say, "Hey, you know what? You talk about this, but you're not walking the walk, Tom. What's the deal?" It'll be my, talk about 360s. It'll be my most brutally honest 360 ever. It'll hold my feet to the fire. Um, so I think there's an element of that hyper personalization that we haven't quite seen yet, which will start to address the issue that you brought up around, well, the way I parent is the way I parent, not the way all of humanity has parented. Yeah, but when I get you and I know your children too, now I can provide advice that's much more specific and much more actionable and much more relevant. I think we'll get there relatively soon.
Hi, I'm Mark A. Wolf, author of Yeah, But. Perspectives can shape your success or sabotage it. However, you're not alone in facing self doubt. Even tennis legend Andre Agassi, once the world's top rated player, admitted, Yeah, but I don't feel successful. My book, Yeah, But, helps shift your perspective with 15 standalone chapters and a quick finder to navigate excuses like this. Ready to define success and have no more yeah buts? Click the show note link today and get your copy from Amazon or Apple Books. It's just interesting to see. I'm not afraid of technology. I mean, I love beta testing things and playing with things to understand them. And I think that a lot of people are now getting exposure to something, just like they hear about Bitcoin and they're like, oh, now they're a fan because it's 100,000 when
Right,
they weren't, when it was, they should have been at 5,000, right?
right.
Because they were afraid of what was new and they don't understand it. If our role, Tom, is to go and make sure people have at least good information from trusted sources, and they're using now AI as a replacement, which because it asks really good questions back now.
Right,
I mean, and it has voices,
right,
which you can pick the. You start to humanize it, and we've seen your demo where you humanize it to the point where I was like, okay, I couldn't tell which one was the
right.
generative AI. It's the thing is that where do we know when enough is enough in certain areas that we should pull back when it's so enticing to just let it work for you and make our
Yeah.
lives so much easier and then avoid failure.
I, there's no pulling back. There's no pulling back. This is like trying to stick your finger in the genie bottle, or whatever, the genie lamp, whatever. There's no pulling back. I think we are going to have to, in the same way there was no pulling back with social media. Uh, it's worth having a conversation around as a society. How do we negotiate and navigate this path? But pulling back is the wrong metaphor. I don't see us
Mhm.
pulling back. Not through regulation, not through behavior, not through societal uh, norms. It is going to redefine so much of how we live our lives, professionally and personally. It's just the reality of it. What we need to do, and we talked about this right in the podcast just a little while ago. What we need to do is um, understand that there's a great potential here for this to be a black hole unlike any other we've ever seen before.
Mhm.
It is going to suck us in. We haven't quite stepped beyond the event horizon yet, to use the metaphor to its absurd conclusion here, but we will. Um, and it's going to be a very different world. It will be a very different world. And here's part of what concerns me, Mark, is that what I'm seeing by and large among an older demographic, and by older, let's say anyone over the age of 40, right, is not just a reluctance, but almost a religious aversion to AI. Like, I'm not going to go near it. I don't like it. It hallucinates. It's not, it's not good. It's not right. It's not. That is going to be a tremendous disadvantage. Trying to navigate the future with that kind of attitude is going to be nearly impossible. Um, which is why I tell people, just use it, just play with it, do something with it to give you a sense for what it's capable of and how it can potentially enhance, alter, modify, inform your life. But so many people are just not, they don't want to touch it. They want to stay away from it. And part of that is the unfortunate popular mythology around it being apocalyptic and becoming our overlord and so on and so forth, which is not a near-term scenario of any reasonable probability. But people have that in their mind and they just stay away from it. And I think that's the worst thing you can do. It'll be kind of like, I don't know if you can see these typewriters behind me, be kind of like saying, you know what, I'll just use one of these. I'm fine. I don't need a keyboard and a computer. I'll just use one of these. Yeah, if you're Tolstoy or Hemingway, go for it. You're all set. The rest of us mere mortals, we need this keyboard. This is our lifeline. Um, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
that's kind of the way I look at AI. And look at what we're doing right now. This is the way you will
hmm
communicate with AI, not through the keyboard. That's going to
yeah,
go away.
yeah.
It'll all be this. It'll do this for me, do that for me, check that for me, check this for me. Have you done the quarterly reconciliation of the books yet? It'll all be conversational. And imagine how far behind you will be left if you don't at least have that basic ability to interact with and engage with AI. That's my biggest concern, is that people will not engage with it. We'll have a whole segment of society that is just kind of left to work with the manual typewriters.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, and I see that as a fear that people wouldn't even work with computers when they were over a certain age because they would try to be like, "Well, I just don't understand them." And yeah,
They
I
had
think
decades. They could write it out. They could write it out. They could retire. This is going to happen in years, not decades. You don't have the
no,
luxury of
no,
kind of waiting it out. That's not an
yeah.
option.
So as we kind of wrap this segment up, and you're gonna give us a preview of your next book or what you're out thinking about next. I mean, you're a prolific writer, and I know you don't use your typewriter anymore to write. With how many
No,
words you type, you can't do that.
no,
So
I don't think I could have written a single book if I had relied on one of these. The computer was a constant companion in my thought process, an extension, my outboard brain, as the saying goes. I'm not quite ready for the next book yet, but I have been thinking about it, and I do believe at this point that it'll be a much more personal book um, about experiences and observations than necessarily a trade book, so to speak. Um, we'll see. My son said to me some time ago something quite telling, talking about our kids sort of tapping into our nerve endings. He said, "You know what? Why don't you write a book about your life?" I thought, really? I'm not sure my life is interesting enough to write a book about. I'm not sure it wouldn't be a biography, but maybe more of a lessons learned, observations. So I've been thinking about that. We'll see. Right now, the AI wave is. I'm holding on to the surfboard for dear life, riding the AI wave, and that's about the best I can do. So I'll write
this
that
is
in.
great. Yeah, and it's great. Thank you for sharing about your family. Thank you for sharing about what really matters to you. This has been great conversations, and thank you so much for all your wisdom. Thank you for listening to the Yeah But podcast. If today's episode provided valuable perspective on how to overcome the excuses that can hold you back, let us know in the comments. Remember, it's not about the yeah buts. It's about finding ways to live, learn, and lead better every day. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little kick to get past their yeah buts. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And for even more tips, connect with me at markawolf.com/podcast or on LinkedIn. Until next time, keep challenging those excuses and keep moving forward.